Hi, welcome to day 3 of Learn Code and Create. In day 2, we studied HTML and the HTML document structure. To continue this exploration of our HTML elements, today we are going to discover some particular HTML tags that are special and also are very good in enhancing our web documents. And these are the multimedia elements or multimedia tags, and then the tags used to embed content. So before we continue, I would like us to understand why we are talking about multimedia elements here. Why is it that HTML considers elements as multimedia elements? I think to understand that, we have to understand the term multimedia. The term multimedia is actually a composed word of multi, which is multiple, and then media. And media here is actually the plural of medium. So medium. A medium is a Latin word to say a way. A way. So it's a way, it's a path, or it's a manner in which something is done, or something through which something is done. So a road or via. So all these terms represent the word media or the word medium. So, and we are discussing communication here. So the idea is, when we are writing documents, is to communicate something, right? So we are writing documents to communicate something. So whenever we are writing, how do we communicate? We can use text to communicate. That's one thing. And so far, all we've been doing is to learn how to format text in order to express what we want to say, to express our ideas. So it is the first form of communication we've done so far, right? So we can also possibly use images to communicate, right? We can also use images to communicate. Then, in addition to images, we can also use videos. We can use graphs and so on. So all this comes in handy with the advantages we have with the web documents. Remember, in our first day, we discussed some of the advantages of web documents, including its being dynamic, it's including interactivity. So this interactivity is what gives it that power of being able to embed various media in order to communicate. So when you have the capacity of communicating via or through various media, then that becomes multimedia. So that's one great thing with HTML. So with HTML, we have the capacity of using any of these media, right, to communicate. So in the previous episode, we explored so many tags to help us handle text. So in this episode, we are going to explore three main things: primarily the images, the audio, and then the video. So, and we'll close this lesson by exploring how we can embed content from outside our website, or even embed different content from the same website. So let's get in and do what we want to do today. So the first thing I would like you to do is to go to your Lance course folder, which we created in the documents folder. And if you haven't done that, find a place on your PC, be it in your documents on your desktop, and create a folder named Lance course. Inside it, create a folder and name that folder day 3. And you do a little assignment. So in this folder, day 3 folder, I would like you to go and find any audio. So if you have some music already on your PC, that's fine. Copy one audio. It might be MP3 or MP4, and you bring that audio in this folder. Make the name simple, like I did, audio.mp3. Then you bring a short video, if possible, too. it can be in MP3 or any other format as well. And then you make the name as simple as this, and then you bring a picture or many pictures if you wish, and you bring them in this folder. Now once you have these assets gathered, the first thing we want to do is to create a file which we are going to call media.html. so this file is going to be where we are going to edit our HTML code and try to explore these various HTML elements used in multimedia communications. So for clarity, and because this code related to this particular tags can be a bit large, and I would like to go for a nicer text editor, you can still stick to your notepad just to get your hands used to typing the code. Or if you feel like you are already comfortable enough, you can try to upgrade to a better text editor. So for my case now, I'm going to move on and use my Sublime text, just for you to be able to enjoy the code and see the beauty of the code, and also be able to distinguish the various parts of the code. So here we go. So the first thing I'm going to do is to include my HTML basic skeleton, and this is multimedia and embedded content. So that's the title I'm going to set for the HTML document. And here you can see the magic I just did. I just inserted automatically this portion of our HTML document. And that's one thing I didn't want you to have at the beginning, because it might not make you discover all these tags. So, and if you look at the header area here, you can see that there is something added in addition to the title we saw previously in the other lessons. So we'll have the chance to explore them in some practical projects. So let's continue. We'll go back to our body section where we'll insert the visible content for our visitors. So as we said, the first thing we want to do is to insert an image. And to insert an image, we use a tag called img. Remember I mentioned this tag yesterday when I spoke of the tags that stand alone, like the HR, the BR. So the img tag stands alone, or sometimes they are called self-closing tags, because as soon as you open them like this, you can also bring a forward slash right at their right side as a suffix before the greater than sign. So this is what we call self-closing tags. So by doing this, that does not bring the image. So if I go here and I do img and do this, nothing happens. Nothing really happens. So if you want, I'll go back, double click on my file so that I can open it into a browser, and I see nothing. So for it to work, we need to add an indication of where the image we want to insert is located, and that's where we also make use of attributes. So the img tag requires a special attribute called the src attribute, which stands for source. And that attribute, remember, will require a value. What is the value we want to assign to that attribute? And in this case, we'll target the image we have in our folder. And here you can see the image is in the same folder as our media HTML file. So the only thing we need is just copy the name, including the extension. Then we come back to our source code, we paste it like this. And once we are done with that, we can go back to our documents preview, refresh it, and we can see we have a nice image inserted. Now that is quite cool and simple, and there are other attributes we can also add to the image tag to improve how this image is displayed. So the first thing we can try to work out with is the width. So we have the chance of setting the width of the image, because obviously, as you can see on our page now, the image looks too big. We might want to have it at a particular proportion. So I could say I want it to be 200 pixels width. So after doing that, I can now refresh again to see, and the image goes low. And here, because I set the width at 200, the height automatically adjusts itself proportionally to the 200 pixels. It means we can also decide to apply the height on our own. So if I decide to go crazy and I set like 300, that will make the image a bit disproportional and it will distort it because the height is a bit taller than the width. So this is at least to show that we have the capacity of setting these very values on the image. So another useful value that comes with images is what we call the alt attribute. The alt attribute allows us to specify an alternative text in case the image file does not exist. So what does that mean is what does that means is that it might happen maybe the image was deleted from our folder. So let's assume for me to simulate the deletion of the, I'll just change the image's name a little bit. I'll add underscore in front of the name, and then when I go to the document again, I can see that nothing happens. So to avoid having this empty box, which means nothing, because imagine you visit a website and suddenly you see kind of empty boxes like this, you might be wondering what is actually there, what is supposed to be there, and so on. So it is cool that we give an indication that allows the visitor to have an idea of what might have been there, and that's what we do with this alt attribute. So if I'm like sandals like this and reload now, you see it removes the box and gives me the sandals. So at least I have an idea, oh, there was some sandals here, or there is supposed to be some sandals here. So this is the indication. And it might be that the file actually exists. So if I revert the name again, and the file exists, but when I am typing my code, I made a mistake and I add a typo and remove the S, for example. When I come back to the preview, it will still be broken, so the image won't show up and I will still get the alternative text. So that's it with the image. There are so many other options you can add. There are so many other things we can do with images, including inserting images depending on the device's size, and so, or add images with figures or figure captions, just like we have in biographies. So like you have an image and then a caption under it and so on. But believe me, for now, this alone is quite enough for you to build almost any website you want that requires images. So let's move on to the next element we want to see today, which is the audio element. We'll start from that before we move to the video element. So the audio image element is an important element that also appears in websites. So let's assume you have the dream or that project of building a website that will teach people a language. So from time to time, you might need to record short audios, short sounds or short audios to show them or let them hear how to pronounce something very well. So if you are to teach the person, for example, French, and the person has to read A, B, C, you might want to sound A and record the A as an MP3 or MP4 sound, and then B, the same thing, and then you bring that sound in front of the letter A. So for example, so I would like to do that here. So I will make use of our definition list we learned yesterday, which helps us to define lists. Sorry. So to define words, so and then I will add a DT, and that DT will contain the letter A, and then I'll close the DT, and then as a DD, instead of me to enter some text, I would rather insert a sound here. But before I do this complication, because doing it this way might make you feel like the audio has to go like that, let me just simply insert the audio like this, only the audio. So I will do that up here. So ignore this one for now. Ignore this one for now. So I'm going to do audio. So to insert the audio, we call the tag called audio. This makes sense, right? And then we close the tag audio, and this is another surprising thing, that audio tag is not self-closing like the image tag. The audio tag requires us to open it and close it, so it is a pair uneven tag. So, and the reason being that it might contain some other things inside, so we need to get it a limitation. We need to get where it starts and where it ends. Otherwise, visually, if I do this, nothing will show up, nothing will pop up, it does nothing. So this this tag as well requires the attribute to be able to bring in the audio we want to add on the web documents. So, and that attribute, luckily for us, is the same as that of the images, which is the SRC. So once we have the SRC, we just have to indicate the sound, the audio we want to play. So in our case, our audio is called audio.mp3. So I would add audio.mp3, and then I can save it and go back to my document to preview, and it seems nothing happens. So yes, nothing happens because the browsers by default have no visual representation of the how would I say it that way? The browsers by default expect you to think about how visually you present that audio player that will now be in charge of playing your audio, giving the users the chance of pausing, accelerating, and then stopping, all these things. They expect you to do that. But if in case you haven't gotten the chance to code such thing on your application, so you might want the browser to suggest an interface for your application. So you might ask the browser, okay, please give me the control buttons on this audio. Then you add another attribute called controls, like this. So by doing that, you can now see the player will pop up. So the browser now thinks about the controls, designs it for you, and then allows you to now come and play your sound. So here, if I'm not getting it to be active and play, probably there's something wrong with my tag. So let me debug that and see what might be the cause. So I have audio, controls. So we add controls, and I could see here even after adding the controls, I still couldn't get the audio to play. The device is, the controls are disabled, and this is the sign that there's something wrong with that matter. So I didn't notice what was going on, so I inspected to find out, and it was telling me that the file is not found. And then that's a very tricky thing. I was seeing mp3 audio.mp3, but rather what I did, I inserted audio.em3 instead of mp3. So it is one of the reasons why you should always try to copy the name as this, instead of just trying to type it, to avoid this kind of errors. So now I'm inserting the .mp3 indeed. So if I preview my document, let me close this area. Now the controls are active. So if I play, something is now playing, and the user has the chance of pausing, playing, and then the user has the chance to mute and then play again, choose the playback speed, and so on. So and basically that's it. You get the audio, and there are some other parameters we can add to the audio elements. For example, we can set it to be muted by default. So it means as soon as the load the page, the thing is muted. Even if you play, you can't see anything until you unmute it, right? This can be very useful. And also there is another attribute which is autoplay. Although this attribute won't get the chance to see how it works because modern browsers disable it. So anything sound or video, they disable the sound to be played automatically. So it has to be done with some other tricks. but yes, it is an attribute that is there. And I want you to notice something with this attribute. You can see here that we just indicated their names, but we did not indicate any equals to values. So when you see this kind of attribute, we call them Boolean attributes, which means they usually have the value of true or false. And then by not adding any value here, we are actually saying we are using their default value, which is true, right? So muted is true. Instead of us write true here, it will become like some redundancy. We are just repeating ourselves. So you can keep it as simple as that. So don't be surprised if you made such things. So another attribute we could also look at is the loop attribute, which allows you to loop one sound several times. So like I mentioned, the example of the language website, you might want somebody to play and have that sound repeated. You see, a, and so on. So that can be very useful. So if I bring this and play it and unmute it, so it plays, and when it gets to the end, it will just repeat itself and so on, and keep on repeating itself. So that can be very useful from time to time. So basically, that's how you insert an audio. So this is the flat way of doing it. So you can go deeper in inserting audios and so on. So I wanted to give that example of use case with the DL like we saw yesterday. I'll do a DL, and then in the DL I'll be like DT, and then I'll write the letter A, and then in the DD now, instead of me to write any text, it will rather be the sound player for the letter A. So I will remove the muted so that we get to play it directly. Then I will also remove the autoplay because won't get that feature after all. The browser won't allow it to autoplay. So then we can reload. So we see our letter A, and then we see the sound to read letter A. Assuming we have the sound here, so you just do play, and it will say A, and then it will repeat. So you can imagine in a better, you can have a better context where you have all this repeated several times for various letters, and you have a cool language website teaching people how to sound. So except we broke the site here. So great. So A, B, C, and so on. And you can have this as a serious business. So yes, people do. So that is it with the sound, the audio. And I wish I could go deeper, but I don't want to confuse you. So let me even revert this so that we just have the line of the audio. This was just an example of use cases. So the next thing I would like us to look at is the video tag. So the video tag, just like the audio tag, they are similar. We also use the video tag, and we also have to close it too. So I was mentioning that the audio tag requires us to close it because we could put things here. So the same thing with the video tag, we could also put things here. So that's why we have to close it. So let me give you a quick example of how a situation whereby we might need that. So for example, some people's browsers cannot support this audio if they're still using old browsers, so this audio tag and video tags. So in case that happens, we might want to give them an indication and tell them, okay, it seems your browser is not supporting this tag, so probably you should take this action. So you could insert a paragraph tag inside like this and be like, your browser does not support audio tag, right? So by doing that, this text will only appear if only the audio tag is not supported. The proof is if we save and preview on our browser, we don't see that text. So you will only see this text if only your browser does not support these tags. So in addition to that, you can be like, okay, ahref equals to So you are now going to tell the person, okay, although I know your browser cannot support it, at least your browser can support the A tag, the anchor tag. So I will link the anchor, the audio you were supposed to hear .mp3, the audio you are supposed to hear, to a link and indicate to you here download. So by doing that, it will force the browser to pop the audio to be downloaded. And we can also add another attribute to this tag here and then indicate the same audio .mp3. So by doing that, we allow the user to get a chance to download the sound. So it is one of the use cases where we get to insert something else inside the audio tag. So something goes, same thing goes with the video tag, and the same thing will require the SRC to get the video. And in our case, it is called intro.mp4, and that's it. So by doing that, we can try to preview if we get something. Obviously we won't get it because, like I said earlier on, the browser expects you to have created your own control buttons for the video as well. So we not having done that, it will just appear blank by default until we ask the browser to give us controls on the video. So once we add the controls, we refresh, now the video will appear. So here too, it seems I had an issue with linking the video, so I can see it is not playing. So definitely there's something I've done wrong there. So if I go back to the source code, now look at mp4, and I don't know why I have problems with mp4, and p always comes before the m. So mp4, and then we refresh. Now it shows the video. So if I do play, you see it plays, play, it plays. So the controls are there, allowing me to enlarge, mute, change the speed, and so on, and picture in picture. So it will just take it down here, so on. So that's quite cool. And a good example of this case is YouTube. So when you are watching YouTube videos, you see the player they have there, which has the nice buttons, forward, change the configurations. So YouTube actually went on to use these tags and then customize all these buttons and then give these controls on the video that is being played. So you can imagine the opportunities around these tags. So that's why I really wanted this to come in as a separate course or as a separate lesson, so that you can take them seriously. And what I'm telling you about these tags here is just the surface, which is very, very important and useful to most websites. But if you want to use them in an advanced way for more advanced projects, you might need to dig more on styling them and also handling events using JavaScript and so on, which probably we'll see once we get to JavaScript. So, but with this, you are ready to build anything. So there's nothing special, right? So no matter how big your website, it might be a giant Alibaba or a giant Jumia, still that's how you insert images, that's how you insert audio, that's how you insert a video. So basically nothing really special about that. It's when your need is really critical, then you might have to dig a lot. Okay, so the same thing, just like we had with the audio, we can also add the muted tag. We can add the loop for it to be looping. So let's preview this looping and see. So if I start playing, you see it will loop and loop, but it is now muted because marked it as muted. If I mute, so it will now play with the sound and repeat itself over and over and over. So until I decide to pause it myself. So, and we can also add tags like the weight and so we can set the weight of the player, and this weight you can see here we have to indicate a value. So if I say 900 pixels, You see, I've enlarged the player to some size, which is cool. Okay, another attribute we could look at when it comes to the video is the poster. So the poster is actually something like poster, and then we indicate an image. Let me put these sandals and you see what this thing does. So poster, then I'll do this. So you can see. So the poster is actually an image that shows up there before you start playing the video. That is very useful if you are looking at videos on YouTube. Let me bring this a little bit down to 300. When you open YouTube, you see these thumbnails, they show up before, and when you are uploading a video on YouTube, YouTube will be like indicate the thumbnail of the video. The thumbnail here is actually the poster you see. So you set up a poster for the video, and that will be the user's thumbnail that they set when they were uploading the video. So if you don't do that, YouTube will try to pick an image from the video itself and then set it as a poster. Actually, they do that during the upload. They'll pick like 2 or 3 images and then ask you to pick one. So basically, that's the cool stuff about images. So once we are about the video, sorry. So once we are done with the videos, and like I said again, this is just the basic way of doing it. There are more advanced ways of using videos and audios. So the next thing I would like us to look at is what we call the iframes. So iframes for inline frames. So the inline frames are tags, or the inline frame is a tag that is used to bring, let's say, foreign content in your website. So what do I mean by that? It might happen that you want to embed somebody's tweet in your website. So that's something that is not supposed to be in your website, but you need to bring it there. Maybe you pick some forum discussions from a different website that you want to embed. Let's say this comment section, comment stuff, you want to pick it from Facebook and then also put it under your post and so on, or even some external video and so on, or it is a game on a different website that you would like to make it appear on your website. So we kind of create a hole on your website. So assuming your website is like this, that's your web page. So you just decide to kind of dig a hole in between. So let's assume in this direction. And then we bring a different content inside. We insert it from a different page. And that different page can be a different website entirely. And this is your website. And then we insert it in here. So that thing was useful and many things. That's what preceded what you see today on many websites, where you have the content divided into columns and boxes and so on. Then in the 90s or early 2000s, it was called frame sets. So they were called frame sets until there became some security challenges. So frame sets. So you probably go around it and see what it was. I think there's some E here. Okay, I did that. So that's my E here. So and today we use what we call iframes. So the iframes is just like you bringing some foreign content inside your website. So to demonstrate that, I'm going back to our day 3 folder in the Lance course, and then I'll create a new file. Let's say I'll name it news. Let me name it news.html. Yes, I want to change. So, and I'm going to our home page here, which is the media page here, and then I will do iframe, and you can see that iframe 2 is just like the video and audio tags. They are even. So it will also requires us to indicate the source. So that's the source of whatever content we are trying to bring in, and that's very, very powerful stuff. So this could be the link to your tweet, or this could be the link to a YouTube video that you want to embed in there. So in our case, we want to embed something that even exists inside our own website, which we call news.html. So that's what we want to embed. So if we now go and preview, you can see there's a frame that is set there, but nothing shows because in the news page we did not insert anything. So if I go back and open it with the same text editor, which is Sublime, so Sublime text, and then I put in some HTML code sorry, and I'll set some title and say news, go in the body and be like breaking news, like this. Now if we refresh our website, we should see that the breaking news is happening. So this is very interesting and very powerful stuff because the browser is actually embedding another browser. So with all the browser's capabilities, we bring another browser inside it, and this can also be in code a resource expensive stuff. So that's for advanced topics where you are concerned about the resources, because once a browser is on, it also takes the memory, the CPUs or stuff, and bringing another browser inside is like having two browsers. And imagine if you abuse and you use like 2, 3, 5, 10, and so that can also affect your website's performance. So it is a code you have to remember. So this is one thing about the iframes. We just bring content inside content, and that is very, very powerful. Imagine you are creating a game and the whole game is built in a different application that appears in a different, and the main browser will double power. So that can be very interesting. So some of these other attributes we can see with the iframe is maybe setting a name for it, and it's very, very interesting. So let's say we have the attribute name. So when we set the name, we could say news frame, and make it news frame like this. And then the purpose of having the name is like we could have let's say here I could have some link here, href is equals to, and what I want is this link, whatever we link to on this anchor, let's say fresh news dot html. So this link is supposed to open a page called fresh news dot html. So get fresh news here. So that's what this link is supposed to do. If I refresh, I should see the link here telling me get fresh news. So if I click it, it will try to load the page called fresh news. So it means I might need to go and create that page somewhere here. So I'll go back to my folder, new text, and then add this fresh news.html. Yes, approve. So if I now refresh the page, I should see the page showing empty. So that one too, let me enter some content inside. So I'll open it with my favorite text editor, Sublime Text, and then I will also enter some basic HTML code and be like fresh news. And in the body here, I'm going to use a heading one and say get some fresh news. So like this. So I save the changes, I reload. Now we have the page. So if I go back to the media.html page, I see the link here saying get fresh news. If I click, it will open that page. Now what I want to do is that whenever I click on this get fresh news, I want this fresh news to open in this iframe. So I will do this. I'll go back to the media page here, and where we have the link, I will set the target. So by setting the target, you see, it suggests me the news frame. That's the name I set for the iframe. So by doing that, I am actually saying open it over there. So if I do, and you can see where it opens, this can be very, very super powerful, right? Very powerful. So imagine this whole thing is an entire application fetching news from a database and so on, and that can happen very quickly and nicely. So another thing we could also go through with the iframe is maybe its width and height. And so we can set the width. Right now we can see the width is very tiny, so we can set some width, some decent width, let's say 400, and the height as well. Let's keep the height at 400 and the width to 200, so that it looks like a column. So height, and then we'll make that 400. Good. So it looks like a side column on our website, and you can see the fresh news. Good. This looks interesting. We can also set the scrolling control, which is should it scroll in case the content becomes large also. Yes. So let me set it. I think it should be true also. So I don't remember the actual value again. Let me keep it Boolean and see how it goes. So it might also happen in that I will not see anything because the content size is not that much to cross this. And I think we also could set maybe the border and all this and define if it should have this border we have here or not. So that's quite cool. So thank you so much for staying around here. We also have to remind you guys, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, you can consider that. Subscribe to the channel. It is a very big support, and if this content has been useful to you as well, we also have our donation links here and there. Consider doing something. So thank you so much for this lesson, following this lesson up to here, and see you in the next lesson.